Every zombie survival plan ever written is designed to get you killed. Every bunker stockpile, every bug-out bag, every fantasy about raiding grocery stores assumes the apocalypse works like a video game where the rules stay frozen in place. They don't. That's why today I'm breaking down the 12 biggest misconceptions about long-term zombie survival and why the people who think they're prepared are actually the least likely to make it past year 3. Starting with the most dangerous fantasy of them all, scavenging forever. Grocery stores aren't warehouses. They're showrooms that operate on a 3-day inventory cycle with nightly truck deliveries. Walk into any supermarket right now and you're looking at roughly 72 hours of food. During COVID panic buying in March 2020, shelves went from fully stocked to empty in under 6 hours, and that was with supply chains still functioning. Now imagine that same panic with zero restocking and 330 million desperate people converging on the same resources simultaneously. Low-acid canned goods last 2 to 5 years under ideal storage conditions. Ideal means cool, dry, dark environments at 50 to 70 degrees. The second HVAC stops, those conditions evaporate. Cans corrode, seals fail. Rats shred packaging. Dry goods like rice and pasta last 6 to 12 months maximum. The siege of Leningrad from 1941 to 1944 is the closest parallel we have. 3 million people had roughly 1 month of food reserves when surrounded. Even with rationing and supply routes, 800,000 to 1.5 million civilians died. Daily rations dropped to 125 grams of bread per day, half of it sawdust. People ate wallpaper paste, boiled leather, and zoo animals. 2,105 people were arrested for cannibalism in 6 months. By summer 1942, survivors had converted every patch of ground into vegetable gardens, because scavenging was never going to be enough. If you think you're raiding your way through 3 years, you're planning for slow starvation with extra steps. Gasoline forever. The Walking Dead's biggest lie isn't the zombies. It's that Daryl's motorcycle still starts in Season 9. Regular gasoline begins degrading in 1 to 3 months. The E10 blend absorbs moisture and causes phase separation where fuel literally splits into layers. Non-ethanol gasoline lasts 6 to 12 months. Even with fuel stabilizer, maximum is 18 months. Diesel fares slightly better at 6 to 12 months, but modern ultra-low sulfur diesel degrades faster than old formulations because the sulfur that acted as natural preservative was removed. Popular mechanics called this out. If The Last of Us were true to life, none of the cars would start. But fuel isn't the only problem. Car batteries self-discharge and die within weeks to months. Tires degrade from oxidation alone. Industry consensus says replace after 6 years of service or 10 years from manufacture, regardless of tread. Paul Walker died in a crash involving 9-year-old tires. By year 3, rubber hoses crack, belts snap, and seals leak. The alternatives are grim. Wood gas generators powered over 1 million vehicles in World War II Europe, but require bulky gasifier apparatus and deliver only 60 to 70% of gasoline's power with constant tar maintenance. Biodiesel requires chemistry knowledge and methanol supplies. Every vehicle in The Walking Dead should be undrivable by Season 2, but at least you're stuck in one place, which means you can defend it, unlike the lone wolves. The lone wolf. Every post-apocalyptic fantasy includes that one badass who needs nobody. Daryl Dixon, the Fallout Wanderer. The problem is it's mathematically impossible. A single person cannot maintain 24/7 security. Sleep is not optional. You need minimum 3 people just for 8-hour guard shifts, and those people also need to eat and work. One broken ankle becomes a death sentence when nobody can fetch water or defend you while immobilized for 6 weeks. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar found layered group structures across all human societies. 5 people in an intimate support clique, 15 in a sympathy group, 50 in an effective working band, 150 in a full community. Analysis of hunter-gatherer societies, medieval villages, and military organizations consistently shows groups of 50, 150, and 500 are disproportionately common and have greatest longevity. The smallest self-standing military unit worldwide is the Company, ranging 120 to 180 soldiers. That's Dunbar's number appearing in every functional human organization throughout history. Anglo-Saxon villages in the Domesday Book averaged around 150 people. Even history's famous mountain men operated in a continent with only 10 million widely dispersed indigenous people and vast wilderness. Today's scenario, 330 million people competing for resources. The conditions that allowed rare solo survival no longer exist. Actual lone wolves in nature have the highest mortality rate of any wolf. There's a reason for that, but even if you accept needing a group, most stockpile the wrong survival tool. Guns solve everything. Firearms dominate every zombie survival plan. Preppers stockpile thousands of rounds. The assumption is that a well-armed survivor is a safe survivor. Ammunition is finite and non-renewable once manufacturing stops. The US produces roughly 9 billion rounds annually. That sounds infinite until you look at Vietnam War consumption rates. 52,000 rounds fired per confirmed enemy hit. Even billions of rounds become scarce within months of active use. But the bigger problem is what every gunshot does. A handgun can be heard 1 mile away, a rifle 2 miles or more. In a post-collapse world with zero ambient noise, gunshots carry even farther. Every trigger pull broadcasts 3 things. Here's where I am. I have resources worth defending. I have a firearm worth taking. Then there's maintenance. Cleaning solvents, lubricants, bore brushes, replacement springs all require industrial manufacturing. The M16's reliability problems in Vietnam were caused by inadequate cleaning. Soldiers died because they couldn't maintain weapons in field conditions. But here's what breaks firearm dependency. Primers. Those tiny explosive caps require precise chemistry with mercury fulminate or lead styphnate that cannot be safely improvised. When your primers are gone, every gun becomes an expensive club. Bows and crossbows offer silent operation, reusable ammunition, and field manufacturability from natural materials. For 3+ year survival, sustainability beats firepower. In year 1, the guy with the AR-15 is king. In year 5, the guy with the bow and vegetable garden is alive. But most assume they'll start that garden whenever canned food runs out. Farming is easy. Farming has a 3 to 5 year learning curve even for dedicated students. First-year crop failures are the norm. One beginning farmer planted 250 watermelon seedlings and harvested roughly 100, learning that weeding should not be an afterthought. Beginning farmers make up only 10% of the farming population because the barrier to competence is enormous. The calorie math is brutal. One person needs roughly 1 million calories per year. Potatoes produce 17.8 million calories per acre at commercial yields with irrigation, fertilizer, pesticides, and hybrid seeds. Without modern inputs, an inexperienced farmer might achieve 25 to 50% of yields. You need 1 to 3 acres per person minimum, plus years of soil preparation. Then there's the seed problem. Most commercial seeds are hybrids that don't breed true. Seeds saved from hybrid plants revert to unpredictable genetics. Only heirloom open-pollinated seeds can be reliably saved and replanted. A survivor grabbing random packets won't know the difference until their second-year crop is worthless. In 1609 to 1610, 500 English colonists at Jamestown had an entire continent of arable land, native trading partners, and supply ships from England. 88% died in one winter because they couldn't farm. They ate horses, dogs, rats, shoe leather, and, confirmed by 2012 archaeological evidence, each other. Jamestown is the single most relevant historical parallel. These weren't stupid people. They were desperate people who discovered too late that farming is a skill you can't learn while starving. But at least they had clean water. Water everywhere. Clean water seems easiest to solve. Rivers, lakes, streams, rain. Just fill your canteen from any body of water. Municipal water systems rely on electric pumps. After power failure, water tower reserves drain within 6 to 12 hours. Apartment buildings lose water immediately. Water treatment plants stop treating within hours. Without ongoing chlorine treatment, bacterial regrowth in pipes begins rapidly, and pressure loss allows contaminants from soil to seep into distribution systems. Surface water is almost always contaminated. E. coli, Shigella, and Vibrio cholerae have incredibly low infectious doses. As few as 10 to 100 organisms can cause disease. Without antibiotics, waterborne illness becomes potentially fatal. Dysentery and cholera kill through dehydration, creating a vicious cycle where illness prevents you from retaining water you need. Yemen's ongoing conflict destroyed water infrastructure and produced 2.5 million suspected cholera cases, the largest recorded outbreak in history. Haiti's 2010 earthquake contaminated the Artibonite River, causing 473,000 cholera cases and 6,000 deaths in a country that hadn't seen cholera in a century. Globally, contaminated drinking water causes 505,000 diarrheal deaths per year with partial infrastructure functioning. A person needs 1 gallon per day minimum, realistically 2 to 3 liters with physical labor, doubling in hot conditions. Long term, you need a reliable clean source like a deep well with manual pump or rainwater collection with filtration. All require knowledge, materials, and ongoing maintenance. Water won't kill you in 3 days because you can't find it. It'll kill you in 3 weeks because what you found was full of cholera. But at least waterborne disease is a known threat. The real killers are ones people don't see coming. Zombies kill you. The biggest threat in a zombie apocalypse isn't zombies. It's a cavity. In 1900, the top 3 causes of death in the United States were infectious diseases: pneumonia, tuberculosis, and gastrointestinal infections. Together, they caused 1/3 of all deaths, 40% in children under 5. Average life expectancy was 47 years. A bacterial infection could kill a healthy adult in days. In 1600s London, teeth was listed as the 5th or 6th leading cause of death. Until 1908, dental infections ended in death 10 to 40% of the time. Untreated abscesses spread to become sepsis, airway obstruction, brain abscesses, and heart infections. Hugo Boss died from a tooth abscess that reached his bloodstream. Childbirth becomes a death sentence. In 1900, 1 in 100 women died per pregnancy. Between 1550 and 1800, roughly 1 in 18 married women died in childbirth. Historian Irvine Loudon documented the progression. A woman could be delivered Monday, happy Tuesday, feverish Wednesday, delirious Thursday, dead Friday. Antibiotics have extended shelf lives. The FDA found 88% of drugs remain effective for an average of 66 months past expiration. But once they're gone, they're gone. And tetracycline can become toxic when expired, causing kidney damage. Mundane injuries become fatal: a cut while gardening, a scraped knee, a toothache, an infected blister from poorly fitted boots. In a real zombie apocalypse, your toothbrush saves more lives than your shotgun. But if mundane threats are this deadly, surely an impenetrable fortress keeps you safe. Build a fortress. The Walking Dead's walled communities look perfect. Build walls, post guards, stockpile resources, hunker down. Static defense is the ultimate answer. Medieval history has bad news. Medieval sieges were settled more often by starvation or disease than breached walls. The siege of Kenilworth Castle in 1266 lasted 172 days. The garrison surrendered with 2 days of food remaining, soldiers ravaged by dysentery. Even Richard the Lionheart's impregnable castle Gaillard fell after 8 months. Defenders always lost the same way. They ran out of food. But here's worse. A visibly fortified position advertises you have something worth taking. Walls signal resources. Watchtowers signal organization. Defenses signal weapons and food. Medieval commanders specifically targeted castles because controlling one meant dominating the region. Fortifications made you a priority target. Labor requirements are staggering. Medieval castle construction took years to decades and required hundreds of laborers plus skilled engineers. Even basic timber palisades demand constant maintenance. Wood rots, earth erodes, gates weaken, and timber fortifications burn. Maintaining a fortress drains resources from actual survival activities like farming. You need people on guard duty 24/7, regular patrols, maintenance crews, fixing walls and gates. All those people need to eat, and none are growing food while standing guard. What actually worked historically? Networks of communities with trade routes and alliances. The most successful medieval survival strategy wasn't one impregnable fortress. It was multiple interconnected positions supporting each other with supplies, information, and military aid. Every castle in history that was besieged had the same problem. Eventually, you run out of food. Walls don't grow crops. But even the best fortress with best supply lines can't protect you from the threat that breaks most survivors long before starvation. Mental toughness wins. Survivors imagine themselves as psychologically hardened warriors. Stoic, focused, enduring any horror without breaking. Physical preparation is everything. Mental health, just weakness you push through. The mind breaks first. The World War II study by Swank and Marchand found that after 60 days of continuous combat, 98% of surviving soldiers had become psychiatric casualties. The remaining 2% were identified as aggressive psychopathic personalities. Over 500,000 World War II service members suffered psychiatric collapse. 40% of all medical discharges were for psychiatric conditions. This isn't weakness. It's neurobiology. The human brain cannot sustain constant threat response indefinitely. PTSD rates among disaster survivors reach 30 to 40%. After Hurricane Katrina, PTSD prevalence rose from 15 to 21% over a year. Suicidal ideation more than doubled from 2.8 to 6.4%. A study of cruise ship sinking survivors found 51.7% of adolescents developed PTSD within 5 to 8 years. There's a documented phenomenon called give-up-itis. World War II Japanese prisoners called it bura bura. People reach a mental tipping point where living is hard, dying is easy, and they simply stop trying. Viktor Frankl documented that concentration camp survivors who focused on future goals or personal values were significantly more likely to survive. Research reveals that in extreme situations, only 15% of people show active survival qualities. 75% do nothing at all. 10% act irrationally. Even the 15% who initially thrive face boredom. loss of purpose, and the third quarter phenomenon where psychological distress peaks, when novelty is worn off, but the end isn't in sight. After 60 days of constant danger, 98% of the toughest soldiers on Earth were psychologically broken. Your apocalypse lasts years, and the psychological pressure gets worse when the wrong person makes all decisions. The strongest fighter. Post-apocalyptic media glorifies strongman leaders. Negan, the governor. Rick Grimes making unilateral decisions. The assumption is that authority flows from combat prowess and survival demands authoritarian command. Over 60 years of disaster sociology says the opposite. The University of Delaware Disaster Research Center has studied catastrophes since 1963. Panic is not the typical human response. People act rationally and pro-socially. After Hurricane Katrina, despite media reports of chaos, pro-social behavior was by far the primary response. Martial law has never been declared as a necessity in any United States disaster in history. Disasters create what researchers call an altruistic community, an outpouring of solidarity that transcends prior conflicts. But authoritarian leadership destroys that cooperation. Nobel laureate Amartya Sen's research demonstrates that more people starve under autocracies during crises because authoritarian systems create discriminatory aid allocation funnels favoring political loyalists. Democracies and shared governance produce better survival outcomes because of institutional flexibility, accountability, and open information flows. The most valuable person in a 3+ year survival community isn't the fighter. It's the farmer, the healer, the person who can make soap. Medieval cloth making alone required spinners, weavers, fullers, dyers, and tailors, employing 1 in 7 of England's entire workforce. POW camp research shows survival rates correlated with maintaining social bonds, daily routines, and organized recreation, not individual toughness or hierarchical control. Camps with highest survival rates were those where prisoners maintained social structures, shared resources fairly, and preserved dignity and purpose. Elinor Ostrom won the Nobel Prize proving communities can successfully self-organize to manage common resources through shared governance rules. No strong man required. The Walking Dead makes leadership look like being the toughest person in the room. History says it's being the most trusted. But even the best community with best leadership can't survive if the ground beneath their feet is collapsing. Infrastructure holds up. People assume roads remain drivable, buildings stay standing, and background infrastructure persists passively. They plan around an environment that looks like the present, just emptier. Everything crumbles fast. United States infrastructure already earns a C grade. 43% of roads are in poor or mediocre condition with constant maintenance. Without it, water infiltrates cracks, freezes, expands. Within 2 to 5 years, roads develop severe damage. Within 10 to 20 years, many become impassable. Vegetation breaks through asphalt within 1 to 2 years. Pripyat, abandoned after Chernobyl in 1986, is the definitive case study. Within 35 years, roads vanished under dirt and moss, broad boulevards became cocooned by trees. A football field became recognizable only by spectator stalls. Trees grew inside apartment buildings. Scientists documented 20 tree species actively colonizing the city. Farmland around Chernobyl was reclaimed by natural vegetation within 6 years, visible in satellite imagery. But the most terrifying failure involves nuclear power plants. Without operators, plants auto-shut down within roughly 2 days. Spent fuel cooling pools begin boiling away within approximately 10 days. When water drops below fuel rods at 700 degrees, pools catch fire, spreading radiation worth 10 to 20 cores of spent fuel into the environment. Miles-wide dead zones form around each facility. Gas pipelines depressurize without maintenance. Corrosion accelerates without electrical cathodic protection. Leaks develop within years. In urban areas, gas leaks plus any ignition source means fires and explosions, with nobody to respond. Pripyat had trees growing inside apartment buildings within a decade. Modern construction wasn't designed to withstand nature without human maintenance. Within 20 years, most buildings become structurally unsound. The world doesn't wait politely for you to scavenge it. It reclaims itself fast. And while you're watching infrastructure crumble, nobody's thinking about the most basic survival necessity requiring an entire industrial supply chain you no longer have: clothing and supplies. Nobody in zombie media worries about their shirt falling apart. Boots disintegrate and nobody mentions it. Firewood just appears. The assumption is these basics work out somehow. Based on experimental archaeology, making a single linen tunic from scratch takes 300 to 400 hours. Growing flax, harvesting, retting fibers, spinning thread, weaving fabric, cutting, sewing. That's 7.5 to 10 full weeks of work for one garment. Medieval textiles were treated as investment-grade material, so valuable their quality and width were sometimes regulated by law. In medieval England, cloth-making employed 1 in 7 of the entire workforce. Modern clothing lasts 2 to 3 years of normal wear. Under survival conditions with hard labor, no washing machines, and no replacement, most garments would be destroyed within months. Footwear is the critical failure point. Even the nearly self-sufficient Wilder family from Little House had to purchase boots. Making leather boots requires weeks of hide tanning, specialized tools, and years of cobbler training. Without functional footwear, you cannot farm, hunt, gather firewood, or travel. Then there's firewood. Heating a modest 1,500 square foot house through cold climate winter requires 3 to 6 cords of wood. Each cord weighs up to 2 tons. Add cooking and the total could reach 7 cords. All must be felled, bucked, split, stacked, and seasoned for 6 to 12 months before it burns efficiently. Green wood creates dangerous creosote buildup, causing house fires. And all of this by hand. No chainsaws, no hydraulic splitters. The gasoline expired 2 years ago. During Jamestown's starving time, colonists burned their own houses for firewood. The material cliff hits at year 3. Gasoline expired in year 1. Canned food is degrading. Batteries are dead. Tires are cracking. Modern clothing is in tatters. Every manufactured item becomes irreplaceable, and the skills to replace them require years of apprenticeship nobody thought to start. One shirt? 300 hours. That's the real math of the apocalypse. Because long-term survival isn't an action movie, it's a farming simulation with a steep learning curve and permadeath. The skills that matter after year 3 are agriculture, textile production, medicine, and community governance. Not combat, not scavenging. The lone wolf dies. The community of farmers, healers, and craftspeople survives. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.